Hello, and welcome to the Death and Sex Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Thomas, and with me always is Dr. Kailey Bradley.
Good
Hello,
morning.
Dr. Bradley.
Hello.
Hello. To start things off today, some spoiler warnings. We're going to talk about a new TV show. So just be aware that if you have not yet watched the TV show Heated Rivalry on HBO, the hit gay romance hockey drama, then be warned. Be warned. And if you haven't watched it, you're boring, Hollander. Hollander, you're so boring.
Also, Heated Rivalry is totally is not suitable for work, right? Or
Yes.
or kiddos, but we are excited to talk.
I mean, we're the Death and Sex Podcast, so we're probably already not safe for work.
Well,
Just FYI,
that's true. We're trying not
we've
to
talked about some things.
completely
Yeah. Trying to get what? Completely canceled? We're going to get canceled because our Death and Sex Podcast, where we talk about death and sex, are going to talk about homosexuality.
Well, I'm excited to talk.
I am too. It was pretty cool. So let's just dive right in real quick. So if you don't know, again, spoiler warnings, but for those of you that do know, Heated Rivalry is a pretty steamy, spicy romance story between two professional hockey players. And one character's name is Shane, or Hollander, and the other one is Ilya, who's Russian. And what's Ilya's last name, Kailey? Rozanov, that's right. And they are publicly enemies who trade barbs at press conferences. They're always competing in the ice. They're both, for hockey fans out there, they both play center, so they're always facing each other off during a face-off in a hockey game.
Look at you with your hockey knowledge.
Yeah, the little bit I watched hockey with my dad as a kid is maybe finally paying off.
You don't have to know anything about hockey though to enjoy this.
No. The hockey is the background of what's actually going on, because what's actually going on is behind closed doors, these two men are having a very steamy love affair. And because of misconceptions about being gay, because I think it takes place in the early 2000s. Is that right?
Yeah, I think 2008, 2009, all the way up to 2017, 2018. It's kind of the timeline. So yeah.
And so still some, especially in the hyper masculine world of professional sports, just a lot of homophobia that they're trying to navigate. And so this 6-episode arc takes us through actually 2 different romances.
That is true. Yeah, we can talk
between different hockey players that are really, profound. But I think what is really unique about the show, why it's broken through in such a profound way that it's taken over my socials and my reels, is just the fact that here are two, especially. Well, okay, so there's 2 different couples, but in both of them, some really strong, powerful dynamics around communication. One thing that really stood out to me was the way that they engaged in verbal consent and engaged in meaningful consent, enthusiastic consent around the romance, around sex, around intimacy. And I think it just speaks a lot to what makes a good romance, but also, if I think about it, when was the last time we had a romance story like this that really just swept people up? And in particular, I think it's really capturing the female audience, because here are very vulnerable, emotional men, strong men, masculine men, who are being excellent communicators, who are being honest about what they want even though they're struggling
Yeah,
in fear and all this. So yeah, I'm talking a lot. Go ahead, Kailey.
No,
Throw in
you're
your 2
fine.
cents.
Sorry, our dog is behind me, very incessantly nudging me. I was going to ask, can you provide a definition of enthusiastic consent? That is a term that I am not 100% sure I know what that means.
Yes, Kailey, I would love
you would love
to answer your question about what enthusiastic consent is.
I mean, I can make conjectures, but
right. Yeah, well, I think when we talk about consent can be explicit. It can also be implicit. It can be very implied. I think when we think about romance or if we think about what consent looks like in media, it's often steamy glances. It's often playful
sometimes
bantering.
Sometimes it's not even depicted, really.
Sometimes it's not even
depicted. You know what I mean?
But when it is depicted, it's never a, may I have sex with you? May I put my penis in your vagina? Right. It's very, I don't want to say covert, but it's very implied.
Yeah, it's not explicit. Like there's not an explicit conversation about ongoing consent. And I don't even think
enthusiastic consent necessarily, and I could be wrong about this. And if anybody out there disagrees with me, please do so. And I don't even think enthusiastic consent itself needs to be explicit, but it's a very clear communication of, yes, I would like this, and I am looking forward to this, or I really want this.
Can you talk? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, can you talk to, I think one of the things that struck me about Heated Rivalry was like consent was ongoing too. Like it wasn't just a sexual encounter, begins and then consent is like assumed. Like there was a continual like, is this okay? Can I do that? And I just didn't know if you wanted to speak on the importance of that.
Because that's one of the things that really stuck out to me. So thank you for asking this. So like, let's start with the first episode. So like just in the first episode itself, like here's 2 characters that, Shane approaches kind of Hollander. Hollander kind of gets a read on Shane that Shane's kind of,
Shane is Hollander.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's try that again.
Hollander and
Shane
Ilya.
approaches Ilya.
Yes.
Hollander approaches Rosenoff because they refer to each other by their last names for most of the show.
They do.
Which is great.
They do.
So Hollander approaches Rosenoff.
Yeah.
And Rosenoff kind of gets the feel that, oh yeah, he's kind of maybe a little bit more into me. Their first kind of real sexual encounter is they're actually in the showers. And they're both kind of, I can't remember if they had a workout or if they did some sort of promotional thing together. I don't remember what it was. And, they're both looking at each other. And here is probably the one time where there isn't super explicit consent stated. This is probably the one time where it doesn't happen. But it's very heavily implied. And I think it's the Rosenoff character begins to touch himself in the shower, locking eyes with Shane while he's doing so. And Shane says, not here. So Shane did give some very explicit, no,
some boundaries
I don't
there.
give consent. I don't want to do this. Then when they finally do meet up, I think in Hollander's room, Shane's room later, everything moving forward from there is very much asking, like, is this okay? Do you like this? Do you want to go to the bedroom? And I think even Hollander has said, like, I haven't done this before. This is his first, possibly ever sexual experience, at the very least sexual experience.
Yeah, they don't really say, but it's definitely the first sexual experience he has with a man.
Yeah. And what really stood out to me was how much, this Rosenoff, who is Russian, and, stereotype of Russians all the way back to the Rocky movies, Cold War stereotype.
Russians don't blush. That's one of the funniest lines.
He says that. He says that in the movie, Russians don't blush. I've never blushed. We should do a whole podcast on the top 10 lines of of the show, which, of course, the best one is, you are, Hollander, you are so.
Yes. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a cold sneezing over here.
You're good. Okay, but back to the thing about consent. There's just very explicit checking in.
Yeah.
There's very explicit, do you like this? Was that okay?
Yeah.
And then there's enthusiastic consent is, so Rosenoff finishes, Hollander doesn't, and Rosenoff teases him that that he wasn't going to, kind of like, just implied, like, oh yeah, I'm good. And Hollander's like, really? And then Rosenoff rolls over and says, I'll show you how it's done. And that is in that exchange, from what I'm reading and the way that I read that scene, is that is very much like the enthusiastic consent component of like, yes, like I want to do this and I'm going to do this for you. And yeah, I'm going to show you how it's done, kind of like, and that's very sexy. It's very steamy,
Can you? And I think sometimes there's misconceptions that like communication or ongoing consent is somehow like not sexy. But I think what I love about this show is it's really depicted in a way that like it actually creates, I think, more vulnerability between the two characters, more intimacy between the two characters. And I think that that's an important thing for like audiences to realize. Like consent is, an important part of this, and it is a sexy part of this.
I think when we talk about consent, so there's a couple things here. So first of all, let's be mindful that, largest sex organ in your body is your brain. And the way our brains in Western culture have been trained to read sexy, what is sexy has a lot to do with the way that how sex has been depicted to us. And sex has been depicted to us through romance novels, spicy novels, through popular film, going all the way back to the 20s, when film first became a thing, and porn. And almost nowhere in there is there a lot of explicit requests for consent. And so when we think about talking about it in a modern context, the idea of stopping what's going on and saying, can I do this? Doesn't feel sexy. Or do I have your consent to do this?
Right.
Doesn't feel sexy. And it doesn't feel natural. And it's not, and if it doesn't feel natural for us to ask that question, then it's going to feel awkward. And if it feels awkward, then there's this thought in our head that it kills the mood. I can't do this. And so when I work with couples that are navigating issues around sex, desire differences, things like that, I mean, one of the first things I tell them is, like, don't be afraid to change what you think sexy is, or change the expectation of what sex should look like. Sex can have breaks. Sex can have stops. You can get up, go to the bathroom, you can go get a drink of water. You can, do a game of tag around the house naked and then go back and continue. Like, you can do all sorts of things. You can take a break and hold each other and then continue. Like, sex doesn't have to be, because I think if we think about what sex is often depicted for us in these different mediums, it's that sex is you go until one or both of you are done. And that's the other thing I tell them. If your goal for sex is orgasm, which is performance, then you will inevitably hit dysfunction, because nobody can perform all of the time.
I think that corresponds to what you just said, though, about the shoulds that maybe we put on ourselves or on our partners surrounding this, and even how hard it can be to communicate. So again, that's what I love. These two very hyper masculine hockey players are able to, I think, model like just that back and forth of, in a sexual encounter that models communication. I just think in a really unique way.
Yeah. It's really unique and pretty profound. I found in watching it just how well these two men, and not just them, but the other couple, which we'll get to in a minute, really went out of their way to check in with each other multiple times. So this was just the first encounter. And then you get into episode 2, and then it's actually been, I think, years of them, teasing on and off what will they, won't they, the show does, because Hollander is kind of struggling with his sexual identity.
Well, and that's, I think, another piece of this show. I mean, yes, it I think is connected with people across sexual orientation spectrums, but the representation of a gay couple I think is really powerful for members of the LGBTQ plus community, right? To see, I think, themselves represented in a world where there isn't a lot of safety in being able to come out as gay. And so, speaking of the second couple, Kip and Scott are two, I think it's alluded to maybe older hockey. Well, Scott is an older hockey player, really struggling with, he even says, like, I can't come out, right? And then there's a really beautiful scene where, I won't.
Well, you're getting ahead. You're jumping.
I'm sorry.
4 or 5 episodes down.
I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were going episode by episode.
Well, I was trying to. I didn't give you that heads up. But yes. But okay. So episode 2, there's the on and off again, and then eventually they are able to reconnect again. This is where the great line, "Hollander, you're so boring," comes in. I believe, and then yeah, episode 3 shifts focus entirely, because episode 2 takes place over, we time jump a number of years, and then we kind of time jump back a little bit to focus on another hockey player who played with Hollander in the Olympics, and this is Scott Hunter, who is an older hockey player, who's kind of near the end of his hitting near the end of his career. And he has this exchange with what's the right word? Because would it be barista? Isn't barista feminine?
Yeah, I know what you're. So it wouldn't be barista. Implying. He has an encounter with.
He makes smoothies. He doesn't do coffee. He doesn't make coffees. He makes smoothies. Yeah, smoothie maker. Yeah. What's the male term for barista? Or
I don't know.
the masculine word for? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, right. Pink collar jobs. They probably can't get student loans anymore. Anyway, that's besides the point. Anyway,
why do I have Pink Pony Club in my head now? And you said pink collar job.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm surprised it wasn't in the show. It's a great anthem. Anyway, so Scott meets this guy who's a smoothie maker, and I think there's like some sort of theory that Scott was kind of stalking him a little bit.
Well, I think
on the internet.
Oh, on the okay.
Yeah, like he was kind of like a little bit like not stalking, but like he was into him and kind of been into him. I could be wrong about that. I saw a reel. It was late at night. I wasn't paying super attention. Anyway, so Scott and Kip start this, romance, which is actually I actually really like that romance, and I was really sad that we had to go back to Hollander.
I know, it's one of my
but we learned a little bit about Scott. Scott's an orphan. His parents died when he was 12, and his team is his family. And he feels like to come out would be a betrayal to his family. And Kip, who is very open about his sexuality, really struggles with that. And so the end of episode 3 ends with their relationship ending. But before we move on, we should really take a moment, and we really need to talk about Kip's dad.
Oh, I love Kip's dad. He's such a beautiful example of like an open and affirming parent. He's not being talked enough about in discourse and Heated Rivalry. I love Kip's dad.
Tell us more about Kip's dad, Kailey. Because I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, no, it's okay. He just loves his son so much. And I think he even says something like, I love you no matter what. Or, I mean, there's just this unconditional, I think, acceptance from his dad. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. And Kip has, in the later half of the episode, is actually away from his dad for most of the episode, which is, again, over extended period of time. Because we move fast in this show. Like, time is literally relative. So anyway, Kip is gone for, I think, months on end, where he hasn't seen his dad because he's spending all of his time at Scott's apartment. And so he finally comes home and his dad's like, hey, and Kip kind of starts breaking down and saying, I'm so sorry. One, because the relationship's over, but also because he felt like he's neglected his dad. He hasn't been around, and just like the way Kip's dad embraces him and says, you're old. I forget exactly what he says, but something to the extent of, it's okay. You're always welcome here.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
What's going on, buddy? And the way that he just embraces him is just so beautiful. Whereas I think for a lot of parents, instead the comment is, why have you been gone so long? Or the parents would have made it about them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
this parent didn't do that. This
Yeah.
parent instead made it all about what was it that this kid needed. And so, yeah, just the altruism of Kip's dad, but also the unconditional love
Mm-hmm.
of Kip's dad, I think is profound. And it, not just for parents of gay kids, but kids in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if this would be a good moment too to talk about representation in the show of allyship. So some of the female characters who are friends with Kip and friends with
because Kip is our only openly gay character.
Yes, absolutely. And then there's a beautiful friendship between Ilya and his best friend that he's had since childhood. She's Russian. I forget her name. Mm-hmm. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And
they have, and Rozanov and his friend from childhood, they have a very close relationship, and I think their relationship is even at times sexual, but very much she's aware of the fact that he's bi, but really leans more towards gay, and she's okay with that. And though I think at one point she even says, like, I wish you did love me, but I know you don't, and that's okay.
Yeah, and then Shane also engages in a brief romantic relationship with a woman during the show, and she is just this beautiful example of, because ultimately they become friends, right? When Shane realizes that romantic.
So episode 4. So you're taking us right into episode 4, where we meet Rose, which is Shane's romance of that episode, that arc. Again, I think over, I forget how long, maybe a year, maybe not quite a year, but she's like a famous actress. It alludes to the fact she's kind of like the Scarlett Johansson of their whatever Heated Rivalry's Marvel is.
The Heated Rivalry universe.
What's that?
Heated Rivalry universe. Is that what you're?
Yeah, they're Heated Rivalry. Yeah, right.
There are 7 books, so it is kind of a universe. I mean,
just saying. Yeah. But yeah, so which breaks, kind of breaks Rosanov's heart. I mean, what ends up happening, and I think this is important too, is Shane and Hollander continue to get close, and they have a moment where, for the first time, I think, they use each other's first names.
Yes.
And that kind of freaks Shane out, and Shane runs, and then ends up meeting Rose, and yeah, they hit it off and end up having this very public relationship.
Yeah. But it becomes just a beautiful friendship. And I think the way that these female characters encourage, openness about sexual orientation, they encourage, these characters who are not maybe out, they create some safety. And I just think it's a really, really powerful and beautiful example of allyship. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah, because Rose ends up realizing, like, not that long in the relationship, I think they've maybe had 1 or 2 sexual encounters by this point, and she identifies, like, I don't think you like me the way you might like, my guy friend over here. And the way that she's able to give, as you said, the way that she's able to give Shane permission to be himself is powerful. Because again, I think if it were someone else with a different maybe background or approach to things, it would have quickly became about, me or what's wrong that I'm not good enough. And instead, Rose has enough insight into being like, oh, this isn't a me problem. This is a Shane problem. And Shane just does not know how to, accept himself. And a funny line in this scene where she's confronting Shane is, I grew up in the theater. I've had lots of gay boyfriends.
It is a pretty funny line. But you mentioned self-acceptance, and I think that's the theme woven throughout the entire show. That is just I think resonated with so many people. And it's just so powerful. Because I think in so many ways we have almost turned back a lot of progress in terms of queer acceptance, and especially amongst our, trans individuals. And so to see something, unapologetically encouraging self-acceptance,
Yeah,
it's powerful.
it's incredibly powerful. And so then this takes us into, I think, the best episode of the show, and the one where I actually cried. And I had to tell you, like, I'm going to cry because I will shed a tear every now and then when watching something. Moneyball, I always cry at the end of Moneyball. But yeah, this was just really profound, and I loved it so much. And even the creator of the show has talked about how he's the reason why we leave Shane and Hollander for episode 3 is so that we can have this big moment at the end of episode 5. And so just a quick summary up to the end is Shane breaks up with Rose, reconnects with Rosanoff. Ilya and Shane start reconnecting. Ilya goes back to Russia because his dad has died, and kind of sets, I think for the first time, a boundary with his older brother, who is abusive and manipulative and has been kind of using him for money, and really starts to be like, starts to shed, I think, the pieces of himself that would prevent him from being
he sheds
his most
shame
authentic
is
self.
really what he does. He sheds a lot of shame about
I like that.
who he is.
Yeah. No, I like the way you said that. He sheds shame. Absolutely. And so then we get to the end of episode 5, where Hollander and Shane are very much in a well, for the most part, they're not quite in a relationship, but they basically kind of are. Like they're pretty connected. Every summer, when the season's over, Rosanoff always goes back to Russia, and Shane is trying to convince him, "Don't go back. Stay. Come to my cottage with me in Canada." And Shane's like, "No," or Rosanoff's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." At the same, and then I think while they're having that conversation, or while they've been talking about that, we get to the whatever Heated Rivalry's version of the Stanley Cup is, the playoff finals, and Shane's in it from episode 3, and his team won, and he looks out into the crowd. Or said Scott. I'm sorry, Scott. So sorry, Scott Hunter from episode 3. Scott looks out into the crowd. His team has won, and he's looking for Kip, and he sees Kip, and he sees all the other hockey players with their families, and so he does the predictable thing that we all knew he was going to do, but it doesn't make it any less powerful. He gets Kip to come down, and he asks Kip to come down, and he comes down to the ice, and it's this it's this well filmed, well structured, well built, just continue build. The director, the creator of the show, I don't know if he directed I think he did direct this episode. He wrote and directed this episode, but the way that he builds the tension, the cuts, the push-ins, all these things, until he finally gets down to the ice, and they have the big sweeping romance kiss. That is just, like, for the show at least, shatters the world.
Well, and I think it's a good example of how vulnerability begets vulnerability, because Scott and Kip finally being open about their love kind of is the impetus for Rosanoff and Hollander to really admit to themselves, and eventually to some other people, that they love each other, that this is more than just them hooking up, and it's just a beautiful example of, I think, when somebody is vulnerable and shows a piece of themselves, how it empowers others to do the same.
Yeah. And so we have this huge sweeping kiss, and then of course that's not enough. Just to top it off, we have the famous line. Rosanoff stands up, walks out of the room that he's in. He starts calling Hollander. Hollander walks out of the room that he's in. hello, and then you hear Rosenoff say, "I'm coming to the cut," and that's the big line of the show,
it is.
because here we've now set up the final episode, but just to go back, like the creator of the show talked about how in popular culture, queer folk, gay men, I think most anyone in the LGBTQ community, they don't have this type of representation.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was his opportunity to have this type of representation. But I think there's something really unique about this scene that, it's predictable. It's very stereotypical of the big romance scene. But the added layer of like, here's a closeted man publicly for the first time in this big moment coming out. It's another level of profoundness, of just bigness. It's just another level of being swept up in the moment that I think, we could be pretty cynical. At least I can, about film. I love film. I studied it for a while. I haven't really kept up with watching or stay on top of what's big or popular at the moment, or what's, at least by critics, at least what's the big film of the year. I haven't been top of watching my Oscar winners, which let's be clear, it's just political. But what I really love about this is the cynicism of what this scene would normally be in a stereotypical heterosexual relationship. The cynicism is just it's not there, because here we are watching these two men, one man in particular, just say, yeah, enough. Like, I don't care anymore. And I think one, because of the culture that we currently live in, where there's a lot of fear, and that bravery of just being our authentic self. I think one adds it an extra, what's the word I'm looking for here, Kailey?
Well, it's just again, it's a powerful scene of vulnerability, self-acceptance, being our congruent selves and not living in hiding, and not,
congruency,
congruency
and authenticity. It lends itself. It gives itself authenticity, and I think one of the reasons why I cried at this moment. But also I think it additionally, like, the profound self-acceptance.
Yes.
Which, again, in another romance, there might be a similar scene of like, well, I don't care what my dad says, or I don't care what the family says, or what I'm supposed to do. I love this person. The stereotypical probably Hallmark romance. I don't watch a lot of Hallmark movies, so I can't say for sure. But the authenticity of, I'm gay, this is who I am, and bringing down this person that I do love, and they've said that to each other, but he couldn't, out of fear of betraying his family. And hey, I'm gonna do this. So I just love episode 5. I think a lot of people love episode 5. But episode 5, I think, really hits home what makes this show so good. And then episode 6 is kind of the cherry on top, because if episode 5 is our big climactic moment, episode 6 is the fallout of that, which is Hollander and Rosenoff begin to realize that, we do love each other. We should maybe be more than just, a long distance type of romance. We should go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think if you don't have episode 5, like, again, that vulnerability is what propels, Shane and Ilya to eventually also accept those pieces and parts of themselves. And again, I think that's what resonates so much. Like, whether it's sexual orientation, whether it's neurodivergence or disability, like, I think we all carry pieces of ourselves that we're ashamed of, right? And when we begin to disentangle that, and when we begin to offer ourselves what I call, or say to my clients, that unconditional positive regard and that inherent worthiness, like, you're inherently worthy just as you are. I think that's what resonates, because I think that's what we're all so seeking. That's what we all want, right? To feel like who we are at our core is enough.
and also why I think it's resonated with so many people. That authenticity, that acceptance, that what's the word I want? Unconditional, maybe not unconditional acceptance, but definitely like a level of like, yeah, there aren't conditions. Like I'm allowed to be me, and that's enough.
So many, I think so many of us, when we think about our own experiences, belonging and love is often conditional. You're accepted if you belong, if, right?
Yes.
I think that's just so messed up, right? Because that's not true belonging.
It's not. But it's often what we've been told. You know, I think about our experiences growing up in, you know, our Christian background, our faith systems. Even though I think many people would have said otherwise, like there definitely was expectations about how you behave, about how you interacted, what was appropriate, what wasn't appropriate for a Christian, not just a person, but for a Christian.
And if you stepped outside the bounds of that, there was repercussions.
Yeah. So Shane and Rosenoff and Hollander connect. They're at the cottage. Hollander has told his parents, who live down the road, that, hey, I'm on the sabbatical, like, you know, for 2 weeks. Don't disturb me. I just need my time. And then, of course, what happens? Hollander's
they get
dad
found out,
catches him because he had to stop by to grab something. And you know, Hollander is in a panic. He's in a panic because this is like, he says, this is my worst nightmare. And the question's asked, you know, are they good? You know, I think the question had already been asked by this point. Would they disown you? I think Rose asks that question at episode 4. And Hollander's like, no, we've just never talked about it. And I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to have to go there because I don't know. Because we just don't talk about it. And Rosenoff, and again, like, here's this what's the stereotypical expectation of a male Russian character? He's tough. I don't blush. Has this very like caregiving. I'm here.
Yes.
What do you need?
It's a beautiful example of co-regulation.
Yeah. Yes.
Puts his hand. I think Ilya puts his hand on Shane and says, "You're okay. You're okay. I'm here." And I it's just beautiful how he's able to help Shane then have this beautiful conversation then with his mom. And what I love about that scene is his mom emotionally says, "I'm so sorry that you felt that you couldn't share this part of you with me as your mom." And
you're getting to the end. You're skipping to the end of the episode.
I'm so sorry. I know I'm just looking at time too.
We'll get there. Don't worry. If we run over, listen, this is a good show. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about it in its entirety.
We could do part 1, part 2.
Well, we can come back. We could probably talk about the show some more. We should. But okay, so then Shane and Ilya go to Shane's parents' house. They come, you know, we are lovers. No. Ilya.
There's a lot of funny, there's some great lines throughout.
There's some great lines in here.
Yeah.
But then, yes, the eventual, as you were pointing out, the eventual, I mean, not that they wouldn't ever be accepted, but I think once the shock of, our kid is gay kind of washes over them, and they kind of begin to be like, you know, because this is the thing that happens very quickly for these parents, but I think is what's harder for a lot of parents, especially parents that have some opinions about what it means to be gay. But the grief of what they thought their kid's life would be. There's a moment of like, okay, we gotta work through that. And what's great about what we see in this exchange, in this exploration of these parents is they're not beholden to the dream. They're not beholden to what they thought their kid's life was. And they're able to still recognize that a lot of the dream that they still had for their kid can still happen. It's just going to be a little different, and that's okay. And I think that's the thing that can be very hard. And again, we're both straight. We're not gay. We've never had to come out. But I think when we talk about for certain people, when they do come out, what they often bump up against is another parent's grief that they refuse to engage in, of what they thought their kid would have. And so we see these parents take a moment, I think like almost like any other parent would, unless they were very explicitly, we don't care, you're allowed to be you. These parents didn't do that. Again, it's slightly different era. It's not, by this point, we're like getting pretty close to present day. But yeah, I think just not having that conversation, not even really, even though I think they say in the show, like, well, we thought maybe you were, but because it was never explicitly discussed, talked about, or processed, we see them go through the process of just coming to terms with what this means. And then once they do, which takes about, within the time frame of the show, an hour or two, dinner. Yeah, go ahead and tell us again, Kailey, what was the response from mom in particular?
So, Shane has this moment with his mom, and his mom basically says, like, I'm so sorry that you weren't able, or that you didn't feel that you could share this part of yourself with us. And I just gives me goosebumps to think about a parent being able to say to their child, first of all, I'm sorry. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then again, just accepting their child for who they are. Right. And yes, we can acknowledge the grief that the parents might experience, but I think because we live in a very heteronormative culture, there are these expectations, I think, that we unintentionally put on kids, that they have to fit this mold. And I love that the mom finally comes to terms and says, you know what, that doesn't matter. Like, that's not what's important here. What matters is that this is my kid and I love my kid. Period. Full stop. Like, and that's kind of my mama bear coming out, in me.
That's kind of your mom coming out a little bit. Because your mom's a bit
I
of a
am
mama
channeling, my own mom a little bit, because, very much kind of models that in a very, powerful way. But I think this show is just such a gift to, to the queer community and to everybody, honestly. But I just think for so many, and especially in communities, unfortunately, and we'll be transparent like ours, where, conservative, and it isn't always easy to be gay. I think about kids all over the country who are going to watch this and feel like, again, like who they are is okay. Not only okay, but like celebrated.
To that point, the show itself shows why representation is so important.
It's so important.
Because if not for the Scott character coming out so publicly, would our story would have probably ended, or it would have had a very different ending. But our story has a very satisfying conclusion because another gay character chose to be so public in who they were. And that gave these two permission to, at the very least, be authentic with each other. And then now they've opened up to Hollander's parents, and even Hollander's mom says, like, it's different now. Like, Scott came out. Like, you don't have to be. And so our story ends with them processing, what does their future look like? They've talked about.
But there's the possibility of a future.
There's there's the possibility of a public future.
Yeah. And that's so key. Because again, I think, I don't remember when it was, probably when I was in high school, there was a campaign, the It Gets Better campaign. And it was so powerful because it gave, again, kids and teens in the LGBTQ plus community who maybe felt like they didn't have a possibility of a future to step into that and to say, no, you do. Like, there is a possibility. It's just really powerful.
Good.
All right. Really should we wrap up?
Yeah.
Should we land this plane?
I mean, if we want to. I mean, there's no time limit on us. We can keep going all day if we want. But yeah, we can definitely wrap this up and maybe come back and talk about the show some more. Because I think there's a lot more to talk about in the show. But I think the key thing, especially as somebody that does work and with individuals and couples around sex is this is a show that is very steamy, and I say that as a straight man. Like it's very steamy, it's very arousing, it's very spicy. For a straight man, it really makes me feel like I need to go to the gym more. I need to go work out more. I think part of the reason why I really identified with the Scott and Kip storyline is because they actually had chest hair. I'm a very hairy guy. And Rosenoff and Hollander had no hair basically anywhere in their body. I'm like, that's not realistic. So I appreciated the chest hair representation. That was nice. But I think the thing that if I were to leave anything as we wrap up, I think the last thing I kind of want to touch on is just this idea that there's such a fear for men about straight men around what does it mean to be in any way feminine, especially when we think about the manosphere, toxic masculinity. And none of them would ever consider watching a show like this, right? Because like, oh, that's gay.
It's interesting that we even it's interesting that we even automatically label certain things like empathy, softness, vulnerability as just inherently feminine characteristics when that's that's a cultural thing. That's not an inherent thing.
It is. And I think what I love about this show and what really, again, sticks out to me as a straight man is how what's steamy isn't two people having sex. It's not two people having sex. It's steamy.
It's vulnerability.
It's the intimacy. It's the connection. It's the vulnerability. It's the enthusiastic consent. It's the playfulness. It's the teasing of each other. It's the creating space to be our authentic selves.
Yeah. I would say my takeaway most, in my work with kids and teens, I just wish that I could kind of put my hands on every, face of an LGBTQ youth who doesn't feel that they can be their authentic self. And I would just put my hands on their face and say, you are so loved unapologetically. And who you are is more than enough.
Yep. Well said. Well said. All right. Kailey, what are we reading, watching, and
I feel like we just
Obviously,
talked about what we've been watching, right?
We watched Heated Rivalry. Yes. Are we reading anything?
I'm always reading things. But I am rereading a book right now called The Art of Comforting, because we are excited to hopefully have that author as a guest on our podcast at some point in the near future. And so it's a really, really beautiful book about offering compassionate presence to others in our lives. So that's kind of what I'm reading. What am I watching in addition?
And we'll also need to be reading it here.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing that. And we'll need to be reading it as well.
I will say what's on my to-watch list is I've had several people Facebook message me asking me if I have seen the movie Hamnet. And I have not seen it yet. And so that's kind of on my
add it to the list.
On my radar. I've read the book, but I have not seen the movie yet. What about you, Stevie?
Well, we watched Pit recently, so we're in season 2 of the Pit.
We need to do a whole episode on the Pit.
We could do multiple episodes on the Pit. Pit's great. Dr. Robbie. And then playing. I'm kind of getting back into a little bit of D&D again. Gonna do some dungeon mastering or game mastering. So yeah, I've been reading up on my D&D, trying to relearn the rules to that. So that'll be fun whenever that happens. That's what I've been quote playing and reading.
And reading. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Reading. So all right. Okay. Well, we'll be back. Hopefully within the next week or two with some more episodes. And in the meantime, go watch Heated Rivalry. Not safe for work. There's lots of butts. So just beware the butts. And we'll see you guys soon. You've been listening to the Death and Sex Podcast, brought to you by Refuge Counseling. Big thanks to our producer and editor, Taylor Ruiz, for making us sound way better than we do in real life. You can catch us on all of your favorite podcast apps, so hit subscribe because, who doesn't want more death and sex in their feed? And if you really want to keep the fun going, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Until next time, talk about the stuff nobody else will.